had Front Street. But if you're not familiar with the area, you don't know what street you're on, because there are no signs.
Hey. Sorry.
All right, the commissioner is here, so we can start.
I had you up by Nicole.
We waited long enough for our call.
Yeah. Well, if you are following that clock, then you actually got it. That clock is never correct.
My clock is mid.
Yeah.
Mine's always right.
Where's Drew?
I think he's sick. And Sarah's not gonna be here for, I think, the next 3.
I don't know if today.
Yeah, she told me she's gonna miss like 3. We should let Harper run it.
He's short timer with us.
Have you had any?
He's gotta go out to college, you know.
I'll be here through the rest of the summer, so.
Still short timer, and the rest of ours.
So where are you going to go to school?
So I'm dual enrollment in Lane Community College in the University of Oregon.
So Last Chance Community College. Okay. Wow. LCC. We used to refer to it as South Eugene's campus on the hill.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. If y'all are ready, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Livability Committee to order. And roll call, do you want to just have everybody introduce themselves real quick? Okay, we'll start on this end down here.
Darren Coleman, Coos Bay Police.
Calvin Strens, Chairman, Eastside Neighborhood Watch.
Harv Shabothy, Coos Bay Downtown Association.
Harper Thompson, Marshall High School.
Stephanie Kilmer, chair, triple chair, one of the 3 chairs of this committee.
Jim Barron's Community Coalition Empire.
And John Sweet, Coos County.
Nicole Rutherford, City Manager, Coos Bay.
Christine Sylvester, Executive Coordinator, City of Coos Bay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Do we have anybody online? Ryan.
Yes, Ryan Tuss, citizen.
All right. All right, for our first discussion item, we had a public awareness campaign to reduce household waste. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at the information that came with that? And Nicole, did you maybe want to talk about where this came from and give us a little background?
I certainly can, and we also, I should have brought, today we just recently got the, I think for the whole state, the very specific to Coos County information on our waste habits here, which suggests that we're a little bit on the wasteful side in comparison to other counties. So I can share that around. It comes from the state, organization. So I think we were originally just kind of bringing this just in general garbage kind of element up because as we look across the community, both in Coos Bay and just even the outside areas, Libby Road specifically, we see a lot of discarded materials, garbage. I mean, heck, even coming to work today, I saw at our entry sign, we had some things that were just left behind. So kind of trying to address in the best way possible, just educational piece, like what we can do, our part. This kind of speaks to some other entities' efforts in that regard, and this is something we could start putting out in our newsletter. I think our newsletter is fairly well read. I think we are probably sitting a little bit over 5,000. I don't know if I looked at April's numbers, so I'd have to check that out again. So we have a good readership there that that we could start attacking this besides just using our other platforms. But so I think what's been kind of gathered is some information that we could use, maybe modify a little bit. Obviously, the Nature Conservancy is a great place to start, but definitely if we wanted to revise something a little bit more specific that's going to hit home for the folks in our community and make good sense, I think that's something we could all kind of work together to build. So, is there something else if I should add?
No, I think that's a good background. And so I would open it up for discussion by the committee. Ryan, did you want to maybe start us off?
I don't have anything at this moment. Sorry.
That's okay. Just want to make sure that we don't forget you are on there. Harper?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So a couple days ago, I just printed kind of the whole thing out so I could kind of look over, and I saw kind of just, there was listed 8, and so I just kind of went through and started a couple. I really liked number 2, 5, and 8. Number 2 is using reusable garbage bags, not just for groceries. And then for those of you who don't have it, number 5 is avoiding single-use food and drink containers and utensils. And then number 8 is curb your use of paper, mail, receipts, and magazines. I think just kind of when I went through it, I was kind of just trying to look at, what would be most applicable for our area with, being kind of the, lower socioeconomic status that a lot of our people face, and just, trying to see what we could, what would be applicable to like the most amount of people. So I really liked those ones.
I think there's definitely been some good information that has come out about this over the years, but it never hurts to, enhance that. Maybe some areas, some analysis of the data that you just got might show us where we really need to put some focus. Do you recall anything?
So I just briefly opened it up and looked at like what our numbers were, and I saw Coos County was pretty wasteful, and so another day topic.
Okay.
But I think there could be some depth there, and it is an organization that's at the state, so there probably is some tools and resources that they could even provide in order to kind of help us develop a campaign. So.
Were those numbers just like county-wide, or were they more like city-specific?
It's really just by county,
Okay.
what I was looking at. I didn't scroll through the whole
Okay.
thing to see if there was,
All right, thank you.
some more details once it kind of delved in, but
All right, thank you.
yeah. And I don't know, we have had on the past, and it just hasn't surfaced up again, but council was talking about for a little bit of time, styrofoam container usage. It's been a few years, so, maybe that's something that needs to bubble back up.
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
Are you just going to do a household, or are you going to talk a little bit about commercial as well?
I think household is where this was focused at, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean we can't talk about, addressing some of the business needs.
My only thought is businesses, mainly gas stations and fast food restaurants, they have very limited outside trash receptacles for trash. And look at their parking lots, there's the trash. And also possibly city trash cans can also have a recyclable trash can. Possibly the fast food and gas stations as well, and other businesses would help a little bit as well.
If I recall, I do believe that the Les's and North Bend Sanitation do have a way that they can go into a business at no charge and do an evaluation of waste. That may be something that we could, check into, and if that's still the case, it's been a while since I've talked with them about it, but maybe help promote that.
Yeah, we, just serendipitous, I guess, this morning, Christine had yesterday, not this morning, yesterday, Christine had a conversation with the new director. We probably all know Bill Richardson, retired. And she posed the question if he would have interest to come and speak to the group. He's very interested, so we can certainly try and get him on maybe the next month's agenda, present what they have here locally available, what they might be interested in, if there is outreach like that, or maybe even just redeveloping if there isn't.
So more on, anyone have any other additional? Harv, do you have anything?
No, I really don't. When you get into the downtown area, quite honestly, our biggest problem turns out to be the cigarette butts, I hate to admit. When you get right down to it, trash-wise, that's probably our biggest obstacle. Within, like, Central Avenue and some of the streets, the city has done I think a reasonable job in terms of getting containers out there, and I believe most of our businesses are effectively using those. We can do some more work as an organization in terms of promotion, no question about that, and we're more than happy to do so. The other thing I was thinking out loud after the last meeting, we talked a little bit about, well, how do we make some of our litter containers a little bit more friendly to the community.
The wins.
I kind of thought out loud, we're doing some artwork on our utility boxes. We've got a call to artists out again for another round of that. But that may be something we can do in terms of an organization again, and in terms of some of our litter containers. Quite honestly, we've got a ton of artists in town that would probably love the opportunity if given a chance.
Was the art program that we saw where the watershed folks did some painting on the storm drains, and also the utility boxes, was that handled through your design
Yes.
branch of
Yeah.
your organization?
Yeah.
Do you think they would be willing to bring that up and talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. Sarah Leahy was the chair of that particular committee, and she and I have already talked about that opportunity. So I
So-
think there would be some willingness.
So maybe you can put something formal together and bring that back to this committee, and then we can
Sure.
look at it and take it back to the council. Would that be the appropriate?
Okay. Can do.
What about Empire Community Coalition? You've got some issues out there. And wind that carries it far and wide.
Opportunities. Recruiting youth right now, we're working over the summer to clean up up and down Newmark, Kansas City for all new cars. Hopefully they're full every day. I think we're talking about doing some more of the painting on the utilities, and there's 6 more.
So they are looking at a utility box. I just was on South Empire Boulevard, and what has been added for waste containers in the last 2 years has actually made a difference. There's significantly less litter there than there was 2 years ago. I'm kind of curious. I seem to recall that the Coos Co-op did a recycling deal. I don't know if they do it every 6 months or every year, where they were able to take containers that weren't readily recyclable through lesses and process them. And maybe we need to look at partnering with them for some sort of community event to take the 5s and the styrofoam and some of that other stuff out of the waste stream. That's my thoughts.
So do we have anybody that's connected to the co-op that might have some information about if they still do something like that?
Not connected, but I shop there regularly, so be happy to
inquire.
Yeah.
I also think I know a couple people who work there, so I can reach out to.
Okay, that would be great. And as far as this goes, would we like to maybe enhance there were, let's see, what, eight on there? Maybe enhance this and put together a campaign that we can put out through our channels and maybe the Downtown Association. I don't know, does the coalition have a means to distribute to businesses and individuals out there?
We can. We would prefer to see it all in a presentation form already done up. It's developing the presentation to hand out and stuff is where we would struggle, but getting it circulated would not be that big a challenge for us.
And then, of course, the east side folks, you have the Neighborhood Watch program, which of course is a neighborhood watch, but also does a lot of community outreach to your neighborhoods.
We have a meeting tonight, so if anybody that lives, works, or owns a business east side, 7 o'clock at the east side fire station.
So are there any things that we're missing that we don't have in this campaign that came from this particular organization that maybe we could do some research on and enhance this? Don, I'm sorry, I totally forgot. You also have a means to distribute as well.
Well, I think we're kind of talking about two things at once here, perhaps. Some of us are talking about reducing litter, and if I'm not mistaken, others are talking about what you can do within your household to reduce the garbage that we have to haul off to landfills.
Right.
So,
This would be a public awareness campaign to help people understand they can do things inside their homes to reduce household waste.
and that's what we're talking about.
And then the other tangent I went off was business, and so, yeah, we're
Well,
talking,
yeah.
yeah.
I just wasn't sure which one we were talking about.
Yeah, I was just kind of all over the place.
Kind of a precautionary note, I know that one of the way that people reduce their garbage footprint, their household waste, is to recycle more. And sometimes they really recycle. Other times they just put garbage into their recycle. And that means that everyone's garbage, everyone's recycling with which your garbage has been mixed up goes into the garbage bin. So oftentimes these programs to reduce the footprint of household garbage, you end up shooting yourself in the foot, or we shoot ourselves in the foot, because people just start doing that, good deal. But they cheat, they put something that shouldn't be in recycling, and that gets mixed with everyone else's recycling. And when it gets to the recycler, he says, I'm not taking this stuff. Take it back home, put it in the garbage pit, and haul it to the landfill.
And I think that is happening more and more, like you said.
Yeah.
People think that you can recycle a pizza box, but if it has food on it, they can't take it.
Yeah.
So then it ends up
From
contaminating everything.
From a dollar standpoint, we don't, the recycle, think about this. We're at least 120 miles, probably 200 miles away from a center where recyclables are segregated into different commodities. The biggest market at one time for all that was China. So you think about the cost of getting, I'm not suggesting we shouldn't recycle, I just am suggesting that it isn't always what it's put up to be. If you think about the cost of hauling a load of recyclable material from here to, say, Vancouver, Washington, or wherever it's sorted. And then you sort it, and you put tin cans in one box, and you put newspapers in another box, and you put whatever. What else gets recycled?
Plastic something.
Plastics into a plastic box, and then you ship the plastics to a plastic company and the tin cans to a tin can company or someone that can smelter them, and glass to who knows where. Think of the cost associated with that. And where it's going is that as citizens, we'll get some recovery of cost, but it's probably not going to pay for the full cost of recycling. Right now, we pay for it, generally speaking, by having a higher garbage rate than it would absolutely be necessary if all we were really dealing with was garbage. So it's a double-edged sword, and I think we have to train people to think that we still have a responsibility, even though recycling will, I bet you, start costing you money. It already is. It's just disguised by being in your garbage rate. We have a responsibility to take care of our solid waste offput and our recyclable offput. You have to maybe pay the cost of recycling. You do already. When you buy a TV, you pay for recycling that. When you buy paint, you pay for recycling that. You don't do it when you buy a tire. I don't know why. You know, our personal, it's kind of sickening. You know, we're used to paying for getting rid of our sewage, but we're not used to paying for getting rid of our recyclables. The day is going to come when we'll have to do that. And it's already here. We're just disguising it again. So these are good subjects. But there's, you know, I've been involved with the garbage enough at the county level that you sometimes get, there's a certain futility to it, I think. And we have to look at what people will do to get away from paying stuff. At any rate. But we have two different topics. One is reducing litter, the other reducing household waste. And they are two different topics. And when you intermingle them, you're not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be careful not to do that. Our conversation will be more productive if we figure out which one we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Go ahead.
Is there any way of anyone discussing with less sanitation on removing some of the restrictions on what can be recycled? Or opening that up to more items to be recycled?
I think it's actually what will be taken on the other end of it. So,
Yeah, that's my
it's
understanding.
really
It's not
enlightening.
their restrictions.
It's-
Like, they'd love to take it all, of course, but they don't have a place to resource that to. There's not another entity on the other side willing to take that.
I can
know
tell
it's
you
a
about
very-
glass.
I know it's a very difficult thing, but I know when we lived in California, we contacted the sanitation company about gallon milk cartons, you know, the plastic milk cartons. Oh, sure, yeah, we'll take them. Okay. But you need a ton of them, and we'll give you $3, you know. So, I mean, I understand, you know, some of it's just not worth the effort of it, but, yeah, something's got to be done.
I'll tell you about glass. It costs money to truck the glass all the way to Portland, and then you have to pay for that. You're not charged for that when you're recycling. That's added onto your garbage bill. And the further you are away from the big population centers where all this stuff gets used or sorted out and shipped someplace else, the more expensive it is. So it's not an easy issue to deal with.
Yeah, I think at the last time that, one of the last times that Bill spoke to the council, they were actually losing money on the recycling
Yeah,
program.
they're not losing money totally. They're
But
losing
on
on
the
the recycling program.
it's
But they're making up for
costing
it.
them money.
You're making up for it on your garbage.
Right.
But it's still important to do. I'm not saying that. You're just fooling yourself if you think you're not paying for it.
Mhm.
But you're paying for garbage that pays, out of which the recycling programs are paid for.
I don't think that it hurts, though, to have an awareness campaign if we as individuals are reminded to think before we purchase something or how we purchase something, which is included in the campaign that we have here, that we could, you know, make more our own as opposed to a generalized thing. I don't think that that hurts, if we want to pursue that as a committee, and put together something that can go to the council and the other organizations, including the county, which has a distribution, then maybe that might be beneficial just to be out there and be reminded, you know, Counselor Matthews and I, one year for my birthday, he gave me a metal straw, and I had not even thought about it, you know, but I forget to take my straw with me, but I also don't get one when I order a coffee through a coffee stand. I do it differently because just that awareness of that one thing, maybe I could make a difference, you know, so,
Eat your apple cores.
yeah.
They're not bad.
Yeah.
My mom ate every part of the
Compost
apple.
before I would eat. I guess I
She
see
ate
the
the whole
connection a little bit between learning how to reduce what we use and our littering problem. Maybe not within Coos Bay's challenges, but I think part of the challenge that we see in Libby, at least related to garbage, not mattresses and, you know, big things, but if individual homes were able to reduce the amount of garbage they had, the cost to, you know, have that taken care of would be reduced as well, and it might be more accessible to them. So it's a piece. It's not going to solve all the issues. You know, we think putting more garbage cans out helps those who maybe struggle finding them. Well, it doesn't matter. You can put them out, and they will still put their garbage right next to the garbage can. So that piece, I think we're going to struggle trying to solve. That's not the highest concern for those people that are doing that, so.
I have a quick comment, if you guys can hear me.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, I gotta leave here real quick, but I just wanted to pitch this program that they have in Ashland and Medford. It's called Rogue to Go, and it's where people purchase the ability to get these plastic reusable containers that they then return to the store to be washed, and then they're exchanged with a token. You'd have to get the businesses all on board with it, but it's an interesting program to look into. It's called Rogue to Go.
Okay, that's wonderful. We'll look into that. All right, is there anything else to add on to, you know, for the discussion? I think we kind of come to the point where we're going to try to put something together as reminders that we can distribute out to the public. And hopefully.
One more thing I wanted to throw on there really quick. About 10 years ago, the youth were exposed to a catchy little thing, reduce, reuse, and recycle. I think Jack Johnson through, was that Curious George that they rolled that one out through?
I mean,
If you're a grandparent, you probably know that, or a parent.
throughout my K-12 education, I think we've seen it a few times.
Yeah, so it's already impacted in the back. But to couple that back with the cost effect, and now that they're middle schoolers now, right? So if we relook at this and start to talk about, yeah, those are really wonderful, catchy little slogans, and it's great propaganda to say we're going to do this. But the reality is, and then we start looking and realize, Yeah, we're shipping it 200 miles and filling up another country's landfills, and it's costing more in the carbon footprint than it was. Because I believe the next generation is going to be handed the problem that we're giving them. But they're already starting to talk about this. It's really going to be handed back down to them. So if we empower them to start thinking about it, they're going to be carrying those metal straws. I remember just a few years ago watching right here in this room about plastic bags and a big laugh saying that wasn't going to happen. Well, the next generation kind of made it happen more than our old, and I'm going to throw myself under the bus. I think the hope is in the next generation, and if we can run off of something that has already been implanted in their brain, we're headed somewhere. That's it.
And even just to that, you won't find a high schooler these days that's carrying around one of these. I mean, every person, even if it's a plastic reusable water bottle, has a reusable water bottle that they bring every day. Yeah, we don't.
It's always an exception. Always an exception.
There's always an exception. It was in my car, and I was thirsty. Just kind of going off of the campaign thing in general, my idea was, I mean, we heard about the stats that were kind of available, and maybe we could put like some stats at the beginning so people, you know, could kind of realize, oh, we're pretty wasteful, and a lot of that's, you know, coming from household waste, and, you know, then we follow that up with like applicable real ways that, you know, they can reduce their household garbage. And then we could, I mean, for the school's perspective, I know our social media person, our promotional person, so we could get that pushed through the schools too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's, all of this is pieces of the puzzle, so.
All right, let's move on to the next item then. And that is an update on free household garbage recycling pickup cost estimate. Do you want to take that with Nicole? John? Ouch.
Nothing's free.
Yeah.
Come on, that's a little price tag.
It may be free to you, you think it is, if you think your neighbor's paying the tax to have the government provide the service that you're now paying for directly. But only if your neighbor is picking it up. It's still going to cost, according to a calculation, and it's very, very rough, $15 million a year to take the garbage that we now accumulate at the county transfer station and at the Waste Connections transfer station in the back. Someone has to pay to get that from your garage to a landfill. Someone's going to do that. Right now, each individual is responsible for that. And there's an equity to that program because the more garbage you produce, the more you pay. The less garbage you produce in your household, the less you pay. Now, if we wish to tax everyone to generate that $15 million to pay for those services, we could do that, but then everyone's paying the same, regardless of how much or how little garbage you produce each week or every other week. So we had a bad deal happen yesterday when people refused to pay for public safety that everyone benefits from. I can only imagine how hard it would be to get a tax paid or passed that would pay for someone else's garbage.
Well, I did a little.
$2.50, $1,000 of assessed value.
That's lovely.
So if you have a home that is, say, valued for taxation purposes at $300,000, you would pay $750. That'd be right. A year more property taxes.
That's an awareness campaign right there, just to bring the numbers in and make people aware of what it is costing in garbage. Because it's hidden from us. We feel entitled to it. We're not really looking at the total impact on it. And I don't know, for some reason, money just seems to resonate in people. They can quantify it, right?
I was surprised when I saw the number. I had to go look and see how many households in Coos County there were, and based on the data from 2022, which is pretty old, it was 28,000 to do that. Would, if you average that cost, and like you said, that's just averaging. That's not saying this guy uses more and this guy uses none, you know. It ended up being about $44 a month, which is really, if you think about it, that's about what I pay.
Well,
Well,
that's
not
good.
quite.
That's
Not
good,
quite.
because that tells us that our numbers are in the ballpark.
Yeah. It's a little bit more than what I would pay. But again, I don't even fill up the smallest garbage can that's available, because it's just my husband and I.
Yeah.
Whereas my neighbor fills up the biggest one, and he doesn't have kids at home either. It's just a couple. It's just that they
And
produce a
really,
lot of garbage.
Even there's always an inequity, because, you know, you pay X dollars a month whether you fill your garbage can up or not.
But let's talk about that. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I really did want to, maybe if we had time, get to that conversation today about the jail levy, but for lack of a better term, to public safety levy. I mean, that's a big number. But it's also a big problem that we see more and more, because there are folks that just are choosing not to, that could, but are choosing not to, or can't afford it, and just are trying to find ways to dispose of it, and it becomes work to do that if you don't have that service. So, who wants to open up the discussion?
I'm not bashful.
Go ahead.
So what you're saying is, there's an inequity. We have a lot of citizens, we have lots of citizens, most hopefully, that are willing to pay to take care of their garbage. Either pay a garbage company to pick it up at your household, or you take it to the transfer station yourself, save a few bucks, but you're still having to pay to get it from there to the landfill. And you still have some cost, both in gas and time and garbage cans, to deliver it yourself. The inequity is, I mean, that's pretty equitable if you're one of the responsible people that do that. But the inequity is, there are a lot of people that are taking advantage of each one of you. And they're putting their trash out in the forest, along the road, in public trash cans.
Or their neighbor's trash can.
Or their neighbor's trash can.
Yeah.
And they're not, I think we all have a responsibility. We don't mind paying our sewer bills. We seem to be responsible, generally speaking, disposal of human waste. We like to recycle. That's good. And most of us pay for our garbage, but a lot of people don't. And as the world gets busier and busier and busier, and we're getting closer together, what I do impacts you a lot, and more and more and more every year. We still have people, believe it or not, who don't even take care of their sewage. More out in the county than in the cities, I hope. But we don't have a good system for collecting garbage. I mean, it's a good system. It's not fair, because you have a lot of people who are imposing their garbage on you. And there are places in this world, in this country, I don't know about in this state, where garbage service, just like sewage service, is mandatory. It's part of what you do in being a responsible citizen in your community and in this world. And everyone pays for what they need. You don't have a tax imposed on you that costs you the same as your neighbor who creates twice as much garbage as you do. You pay for what you need and what you produce. And there's a big equity in that, I think. It would be something I'd probably consider on my last week of public service. No, but it is an answer to a problem, likely a very unpopular answer,
Do you
but
think,
maybe the best one.
do you think it would be worth surveying the public to see where they stand on it? I mean, nobody wants, I mean, if we could get away with paying, without paying for something, I'm sure everyone would be happy with that. The reality is, everything we do costs someone or something.
Don't we need to educate them first? Because otherwise they're just gonna yell.
Uh-huh.
I'll get myself in trouble, I know it's being recorded. But they need to understand the situation before they can make a decision, and we need to get actual information out there. Because otherwise, all they're gonna hear is, you know, I want it for free, or I'm gonna be charged more, or whatever they're gonna argue about. I'm sure they'll find something.
So would you suggest maybe some sort of a task force to put together a strategic plan to take this to the public, get information to the public, and then survey the public that gives us some feedback?
I suggest giving them something to hate about, and it'll get out naturally through social media.
But we want the truth out there,
I
correct?
know, I'm just being sarcastic. I'm sorry.
He continues to
So was
forget
I.
that it's all recorded. So I was just kind of reading through it's only 3 pages, so, and I did actually look at it, I just didn't remember the details, but there's actually some statewide goals around garbage that we probably, this is timely, probably past time, but, you know, with knowing that our numbers are up, we're never gonna meet those goals unless we start changing some habits. So, I agree, I think we have some educational opportunities, we've gotta start attacking that first. I think once some people know surveying's good, not just what we have, but what could solve some of these, we're 10, 12 people in a room in a county of 65,000. Like, are we gonna solve this just with our brains? We might need some more help there. And then it may land where Commissioner Sweet's suggesting, we all pay, and, yeah, so. Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, making the service mandatory, you're looking at differentiating between commercial enterprise and residential accounts and the public and nonprofit sector. So I would like to see where garbage service is required. Okay, and then how to do that, I'm not sure, but we do need to get kind of a survey that says, and if I was putting the survey together, I could pick a couple of county roads that I would show pictures of. Do you want this to continue? And our solution is to have everyone have to have service. Then there's no real excuse. I mean, if they can go to all the trouble to throw stuff in the back of a pickup and drive it a couple miles away, they ought to be able to push it down to the end of their driveway. But I do think a survey just to see what public sentiment would be about mandatory residential service. So you pretty much, most commercial businesses that I'm aware of in Coos County have garbage service. And if not, they're carting it, they have an employee carting it to a transfer station.
So they wouldn't mind having mandatory
Yeah,
service, because
they're already there, okay? And almost all the nonprofits and public sector stuff all has garbage service. I'm not surprised about the number. I thought the number was a little bit higher than that. But
I
you,
don't know that it isn't, but it also.
well, I thought it was a little bit higher than that because I thought they were hauling farther. And at one time, it was explained to me that some of our solid waste was going into Northern California, so that there was a longer haul. And they were also hauling to Corvallis. It wasn't,
As far as any of those places.
okay, but, okay. I'd like to see what public sentiment would be toward having mandatory service. You know, that you have to have service doesn't necessarily mean everyone gets charged the same, because some people, like Stephanie, needs the smallest can, and I need the smallest can, and Scott, yeah, and Scott needs the biggest. Anyhow,
Yeah.
You know what, another possibility is to make it mandatory for rental units. I think there are some landlords who would like that, because they're responsible landlords, and they include that in the rent, so if their place is not trash, you have other less responsible landlords who give a hoot, and they don't include it. And that often is where we find the trash.
Frankly, I think the public sentiment would be to, in fact, go mandatory. I think most of us are upset that there are folks out there not paying. I think that's where most of us would be. Well, my gosh, we've got a problem, and it's because we've got some folks that are shirking on their responsibility to take care of their garbage. I think public sentiment would be in favor of the mandatory charge.
Harper, could you offer some perspective from our next generation?
I mean, just like overall, or?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about this mandatory? Someone said to me yesterday, if you want to reach the younger generation, you need to tell them why first. And then you generally get buy-in.
I would agree with that generally. I think when people want to talk to the youth in general and try to, get a point generally across, you have to meet them where they are. And you have to meet them with the direct, we don't just get straight to your point. Our attention spans aren't very great these days with the creation of social media. And so, you got to be kind of fast, you got to be kind of quick. And so I think starting off with a lot of the kids who have lived here for a while know how bad the garbage problem is, and they know how bad, they know about a lot of our problems. And so they see it out, but then they don't really, look at anything behind that. And so putting big numbers in front of their face would be a good idea. Big, pretty, graphics of saying, what we could do, what we could be doing and stuff like that. And so, to the discussions that we've been having, for, mandatory trash pickup, I think a lot of more sentimental kids would worry about, how, do the families that, can't afford that, how would they be getting through with that? And so they'd be, raising all of these, kind of side questions of, so what happens to the people who can't afford them? Do they get fined, and then they get, they can't afford that, so how are they going to afford the fine? And so I think just, making it as equitable as possible is where we stand on most issues here.
Okay.
And,
Maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I suspect that almost any place that has done this, if anyone has in recent years, has figured out how to publicize this and get support for it. I can cite a couple of examples. why I think it's, I wish our people had the same mindset that you have, but I pick through garbage as a hobby that I find out in the forest and in some of our parks. And I find household garbage, and at a little park we have, and looked into it, and I worked at Sauce Brothers. One of our first mates on a tugboat earned more money I ever thought about making, was taking this garbage out and putting it in someone else's place. Remember a gentleman, we had a meeting one time on patrol in the rural parts of the county, and he was upset because people were bringing garbage out, and he lived in town, but they were bringing garbage out and dumping it near his property. And I said, well, what about mandatory garbage service? Yeah, oh, no, you can't do that. I said, well, I thought you liked that from the way you described it. Oh, no, the reason I have that, one of the reasons I have that property in the county is that's where I bury my garbage. Had a former Coos County councilman whose garbage we found out. Of course, he didn't take it out there himself. He'd paid someone else to do that, if you believe that, which I didn't, because that's the typical answer. Oh, I paid my neighbor to take it out there. He just dumped it, that scoundrel. And so you're going to have lots of pushback, but so I really think it's really wise to figure out how.
So maybe take a look and see who's doing something, and how they're doing it, how they're coding it, how they're
Yeah.
writing their ordinances, and if it's working. And maybe talk to the people that just did away with it. I think Douglas County used to have free pickup, but it was also, it might have been mandatory. I don't know if it was or not.
Well, I can certainly post on the city manager listserv, see what
Okay.
cities, yeah.
Maybe come back with some sort of a report, and then we can talk about it at the next, take it from there. Because we are getting short on time, and I want to make sure we get to the last item. So if that is okay, I will move on to the next item, if I can find my agenda here. Oh, there it is. Discussion regarding potential amendment to Coos Bay Municipal Code, and that was to, I think Councilor Farmer had asked that be placed on the agenda.
Yeah, so there was an ask to put it in front of council. So just so everybody kind of understands this piece, this is related to city municipal code that allows a nonprofit religious organization to have up to 3 units, shelters of sorts, on their property in response to the homeless crisis. And we have 3 in our code, which was kind of a standard that was set by the state previously. However, House Bill 2006, few years ago, was bringing forward the option for cities to stray from that number, maybe not even put a flat number but in their code. So it's an opportunity, rather than putting it before council. Council Farmer said, hey, this is maybe the group that should chat about it first, much like we did initially with the homeless work group. So I think we have
So if I recall,
an individual here who
some of the
has
discussion back before this House bill went into effect was that 3 was a little bit too restrictive, and we wanted to, the homeless work group had talked about expanding that number some, and because the problems that we had needing temporary locations for temporary housing were expanding, and we are in that's been a few years ago that we talked about that. So I guess I would open it up for discussion. We do have Pastor Ford here, that you do provide 3 pallet shelters. Would you maybe give us a little background of, we don't have too much time, but could you come up to the podium and maybe give us a little background on what you do and and what you would like to see?
3 is a lot less than what we used to have, as everybody knows. Part of my faith beliefs is that we try to help people who don't have as much as we do, and especially when it comes to housing or a place to live or a place to do things that are, quote, safe, unquote. So for a couple of years, we provided in our parking lot a place, especially during COVID, when people could come and camp and be there, whether there be tents or RVs or whatever, some were on the ground in sleeping bags under the trees around our property, et cetera. And then because of the acts of some individuals that utilized our generosity, we'll say, had to close the camp. And so we did, and then it started filtering back. And then when Cobank Village came forth, and they had 3 extra tiny homes, or pallet homes as they call it, we volunteered to have those 3 in our parking lot. So they were moved to our parking lot, and I have found that tents breed tents. You can't have just 1 or 2, because then there'll be 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever, especially when we don't have 24/7 security because we cannot afford it. We don't have fenced property all the way around the property, and so forth. So right now, we have 3 pallet homes that are, the people in those homes are vetted by the Devereaux Center before they come, and some are utilized by ADAPT and other agencies that need a temporary house or a place for them to stay until they get into a rehab center or someplace like that. And then because I guess, and you can blame me, that the person I am, is that it's hard to say no to a person that has a sob story, at least in my book. And so we allowed some more to gain and more to people to come in, and every now and then there's a 1 or 2 or 3 or so that come in with ulterior motives, and they ruin it for everybody. So recently, most recently, we had a series of tents there, and a bunch of complaints were lodged against us, and so with the help from the city police department, we were able to clean those tents out. Basically, that's where it's at. So I have applied under this thing for a permit to do the camping situation under that. I have no idea if there's been anybody else that has applied, or any other faith-based organizations or nonprofits that have applied to use their parking lots or wherever they have available to do that. Is that
Yeah, appreciate that. We are running short on time. I'm wondering if we could bring this back and maybe have the homeless response, Andrew Brainerd, come and talk about this, because I know he's been working with the oh my God. Yeah. Thank you.
FB.
Groups, and it would be good to maybe have them involved in this conversation as well. Is that okay with everyone?
Absolutely. I'd like to go, definitely like to go deeper into it.
Yeah. Okay. And I definitely think it may be too early for what has to be digested following the election, but I would like to have that come back on the next agenda as well. I think that's worth a conversation. Will that work?
Just like a debrief of sorts.
Debrief and.
Debrief of, yeah.
And where we're headed. Yeah, I don't blame you.
And with that, I've got to run, I'm so sorry.
Nope, that's okay. I appreciate everyone's time.
So.
It was a good conversation. I think we have some direction on a couple of items, and we'll bring the municipal code back to this group and maybe get some more input from the director from the
Yeah.
homeless response group.
And are you thinking, should we plan to see if someone from Waste Connections
Yes,
can be here
please.
too? Yeah, okay, so that gives us three.
Two good items.
Yeah.
And then a report from the county.
Yeah.
All right? Then we are adjourned. Thank you so much for your time. I know. They don't give me that. They're afraid I'll use it on someone.